Okay, the second part of 5-4 is solving polynomial equations. So we're going to factor them and then take them one step further and solve for the variable, which again, we did this in first semester, but now we're just adding those special patterns with the cubes and factoring by grouping. All right, this comes from standard F.6, which says I can find all zeros of a polynomial function. All right, so we have 2x to the fifth minus 12x cubed plus 16x equals 0. So we know this is a solving one because it says equals. First step, of course, is always to get it to equal 0, which this one already does, so now we can move into factoring. First step of factoring is to take out the GCF. So we can go ahead and take out a 2x. We're left with x to the fourth, and then minus 6x squared, and then plus 8. All right, now we have a trinomial where the coefficient is 1, so we can simply set up an MA table. So two numbers that multiply up to 8 and add up to -6 would be -4 and -2. All right, so rewrite your GCF. Then we're going to go ahead and break this up. Now, because this is an x to the fourth, we need to break this up into two evenly pieces. So x squared we broke up evenly into x and x. X to the fourth we're going to break up into x squared and x squared. So this is going to be -4, and then x squared minus 2 equals 0. Now when you're solving, it really doesn't matter, but if you wanted to, you could break this up because it is a difference of squares. So you could do x plus 2 and x minus 2, but when you're solving, it's not going to make a difference. You're still going to get the correct answer. So it's up to you if you want to keep going from here or just start setting everything equal to 0. Okay, so now anytime you have a variable, it has to get set equal to 0, and then that's going to be part of your answer. You should expect 5 answers because the leading coefficient or the leading exponent is 5. All right, so first we're going to take this x. So 2x equals 0. Go ahead and divide by 2, and you get x to be 0. First answer. All right, now we have x squared minus 4 equals 0. We have to get the x squared by itself, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. We get x squared equals 4, and then we're going to take the square root. Now, just like first semester, whenever you take the square root of a number, you need to take into consideration both the positive and negative, and the square root of 4 is 2. So these are 2 more answers. All right, and then the last one, we have x squared minus 2 equals 0. So again, you're going to add 2 to both sides. So x squared equals 2. You're going to take the square root, and we get x equals plus or minus the square root of 2. So we do have 5 answers. We have 0, we have positive 2, we have negative 2, we have positive square root of 2, and negative square root of 2. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at another one. All right, now we have negative 27x cubed minus 15x squared equals negative 6x to the fourth. So the first step is to move the negative 6x to the fourth over to the other side. So I'm going to do that by adding it. So now we have 6x to the fourth minus 27x cubed minus 15x squared equals 0. I would always write everything in descending order because that's going to help you factor it. All right, now we can go ahead and take out a GCF. So we can take out a 3 out of all those numbers, and then we can take out an x squared. So we're left with 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 equals 0. Now we're going to go ahead and factor this, but because the number in front of the x squared is a 2, we need to go ahead and multiply two numbers up to negative 10, remember the first and the third, and then add up to negative 9. Okay, and those factors would be 10 and negative 1. Oh, just kidding. That should be negative 10 and positive 1. All right, so now we have 3x squared. All right, I'm going to rewrite the first term, so negative 2x squared. Then I'm going to write my factors, breaking it up with an x. So negative 10x plus 1x minus 5 equals 0. All right, now we can go ahead and do factor by grouping. So we have our 3x squared. We have, here we could take out a 2x, and we're left with x minus 5. Here we can just take out a 1, because then we're left with x minus 5. Okay, so I have 3x squared then 2x plus 1, and then x minus 5 equals 0. All right, now we should expect 4 answers. So let's take a look and set every variable equal to 0. So first we're going to take the 3x squared and set it equal to 0. When we divide by 3, we get x squared equals 0. When we take the square root, we get plus or minus 0, but you can't plus or minus a 0, so it's just x equals 0. Now notice that that came from the 3x squared. So there are actually 2 answers that are 0, but we don't write them twice, we would just write them once. Alright, next we have 2x plus 1 equals 0. So if you subtract 1 and divide by 2, you get a negative 1/2. You may need to show that work for yourself if that helps. Alright, and then last answer, x minus 5 equals 0, x equals a positive 5. Alright, those are your answers. Alright, then the last example, we have x to the 6 minus 4x to the 4th minus 9x squared plus 36. Alright, so this is 4 terms, so we're going to break this up. We're going to take out a GCF, so here I could take out an x to the 4th, and I'm left with x squared minus 4. Alright, the second 2 terms I could take out a negative 9, and I'm left with x squared minus 4. So now we have x to the 4th minus 9, x squared minus 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you just the rest of the factoring here because this is something new we haven't seen. But you could, from this point, go ahead and take and set it equal to 0. But that might be a little hard with the x to the 4th, so I suggest breaking it up. Now this is a difference of squares. Okay, x to the 4th can be broken up evenly into x squared and x squared. Then we have a positive 3 and a negative 3. Alright, and then we can go ahead and break up x squared minus 4 to x plus 4 and x minus 4. Oops, just kidding. X plus 2 and x minus 2. Alright, now we can go ahead and set everything equal to 0. So when x squared plus 3 equals 0, we can go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides. And we get x squared equals negative 3. Go ahead and take the square root, and we get x equals plus or minus. Now remember, when you take the square root of a negative, you get I, and then square root of 3. Okay, now let's take the second piece. X squared minus 3 equals 0. So x squared equals 3. So when you take the square root of that, you just get plus or minus the square root of 3. Okay, then we have x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals a negative 2, x equals positive 2. Double check that you have 6 answers. We have 1, 2, plus and minus either 3, 3, 4, plus or minus square root of 3, and then 5, 6. So these are all my answers. Okay, so here are your 3 problems to practice and bring tomorrow to class.